Hello, welcome back. So I thought today I would hop on and do a demonstration of our lovely Monarch butterfly. So as you can see here, I laid out my drawing with a pencil. I just used a regular number 2 pencil. Anything HB or H is best, so that your pencil marks aren't super dark because we don't want them to show through our watercolors. And then I also added resist to all of the little white dots along the wings. I decided not to add resist to the orange parts of the butterfly of the wings. I'm gonna paint those in and then I will let it dry and then come back in with my black over the top. So my resist is now dry. I actually did not pencil in all the little dots. I just added the resist I just kind of eyeballed it, but it's up to you. I just didn't want any of those pencil lines to show through my little dots. So, all right, with that being said, I have my colors here. Could probably have cleaned my palette before I started. Okay, let's see. Give us a little more working room. Okay, so let's see. I am actually going to use a little bit smaller of a brush. I think I'm going to use a 10 round today, at least to start with. So I'm looking at my Monarch's wings, and I might use, I might do a couple layers. I haven't decided yet. We'll see how dark and how vibrant the wings are when I'm done with them. But you can always add a glaze if you want to deepen a color, change the temperature at all, make it more vibrant, etc. Okay, so I see a little bit, so the primary color is more of an orange with a little bit of yellow poking through and a little bit of red almost around the edges. And I'm not sure if that's how the printer picked up the wings, but I think that's pretty true to the butterfly, that it has a little bit of like a red outline before it gets to that black outline. I'm gonna be doing my these little veins with watercolor, but if you would rather do them with a micron pen, you're welcome to do that. Okay, so I'm going to mix up my color. So let's see, I think I'm gonna take yellow and I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay down my yellow first, and then while that's, or let's see, maybe I'll add in a little bit of red to that. So I took a little bit of Scarlet Lake. Yeah, I think that's nice. So it's mostly lemon yellow with a little bit of Scarlet Lake. And then I'm gonna come in and drop in a little bit of alizarin crimson around the edges. So let me get a little bit more of that color picked up here. Make sure you can see how I'm mixing. Okay. Or I have a little cadmium yellow, could add some of that too. If you have a darker yellow. All right, so it's pretty nice and vibrant. So I'm just gonna go, I'm actually, you could approach this 2 different ways. You could just paint all of this orange and then come over the top with your black. I'm actually going to separate the sections just so that I can add that red along the edges. So let's see. Adding, then maybe I'll take a little bit of my Scarlet Lake and just drop it in around the edge a little bit. Can kind of dab my brush on a paper towel so my brush is much drier, and just sort of help move some of this into the center, and that way I get a 2-toned portion of the wing. Kind of pretty. So I'm going to take my next lighter orange value, and I'm not going to touch that previous wing. I'm just going to go right up next to it. It's not wing, section of the wing. Words are hard. Okay, Maybe I'll do two of these little sections. I just don't want it to get too dry. So, I connected them. But I'm leaving a pretty small distance between so that we have more like a thinner vein running between those sections of the wings. And then I just dabbed my brush in my Scarlet Lake and just sort of helping it along. And you can decide where you want your darker area of the wing to be and where you want it to be a little lighter. Okay, and last one. Okay. And picking up a little of that Scarlet Lake. I don't have a lot of water on my brush, so I have more control this way. Just adding a little bit here and there. If I have too much on my brush, then I'm going to dab it on a paper towel. All right, and I see that there's a little bit of a couple really subtle reddish, orangish streaks toward the edge. Maybe I'll just pick up a little more of my Scarlet Lake for that because they're more of a dark orange. Okay. And I'm gonna mix up a little more of this color for my next wing. Maybe a little more yellow. And so I'm getting a little bit more water just so I can easily move the paint around the page, but I'm just dipping the tip of my brush in the water. So I add just a little bit at a time till I get it to the consistency that I want. So it's like maybe like a milk consistency, a little thicker than water. All right. So just doing the same thing on this side. If you're just watching this video and not painting along, you can always fast forward through this part since it's a little redundant. So after I drop in that little bit of Scarlet Lake, I am just sort of moving the paint around with my brush just to help it blend a little better. Okay. I keep starting to hum. A lot of times I'll sing or hum when I'm painting. And I have to catch myself because no one wants to hear that. Okay. Adding in. I really like that. Scarlet Lake is such a pretty color. Just so vibrant. Oh, I love it. All right, so you can see that I'm getting, my brush is getting a little too dry because I can see the paper through that brush stroke. And sometimes we want certain effects, or we want to create that effect depending on what we're painting, but not for the butterfly. I want this to be a solid object. I think we did that actually for the bee's wings earlier in the week. Practice some of that dry brushing. So I think they're right here actually. You can kind of see those rough edges. Okay. And last one on the top. Well, aside from those little tiny guys over here. Uh-oh. Guard dog on duty. And then from here, I'm just pulling that Scarlet Lake. If she keeps going, I will close that door. Oh. Her bark is so intimidating. Okay. And I don't need my edges to be perfect out here because I'm going to be going over the edges with black anyways. Okay. And let's see. I think these are maybe a tiny bit far out. It looks like there's a little more space here. Maybe if I think that helped a little bit. Okay. And mixing up more of that color because I keep using so much. Sometimes when I go to pick up more water, if there's like a water droplet on the side of my water container, I'll just stick my brush in the water droplet, and that can be enough depending on how much water you're trying to add. Let's see, I think I added a little too much of that cat yellow instead of lemon yellow, so it's a little bit more orangey. Let's see. Maybe it won't matter once I add that Scarlet Lake. Let's give it a try. Yeah, that's really vibrant. So if I want to make it a little less vibrant, I can wet my brush, dry it off, so there's hardly any water on it, and just go over it a couple times, and that should pick up a little bit of the paint. Or maybe I just need to make the rest of them a little bit more vibrant. We'll see when I'm done if we need to bridge that gap a little bit more. Okay, maybe we'll do 2 at a time, make the process a little bit quicker. And let's see. So I usually am dropping this Scarlet Lake in around the edges, just because it's a little darker on the edges, and then I just bring it down or around or wherever I think it needs. But that's usually where I'll start. I don't remember if I said that or not. Then we have the smaller sections. So if you don't have Scarlet Lake, you could use like a cadmium red. Pretty close. These sections are so small, they're hard to get all of them in. Okay. And if you omit a little section of the wing, just make sure, that's fine, just make sure that the wings are symmetrical, otherwise it might look a little funny. So that's the biggest thing, is making sure that they are same on both sides, especially since this is an aerial view. So if it was just showing the butterfly from a side view, it wouldn't be as important. But let's see. Oh, my little tiny sections are getting a little bit thin, but that's okay. Let's see, this one is like a half a section, I think. Maybe I think it's covered by that top wing. And then okay. So last wing, almost there. And then we'll add the black. Okay, and make sure you don't put your hand in your resist while you're working. I actually waited for mine to dry before doing this just because I know myself and I will put my hand in it like I just did, but it's dry, so it's fine. Okay. Meant to keep those a little more separate, but oh well. Okay, maybe even 3 at a time. Getting crazy. Oh, dang it, they touched again. It's okay, it's not the end of the world. As long as they're somewhat separated so you can see just how the Scarlet Lake kind of forms around the edges. That's why I kept them separate. All right. If you're still here, you are a trooper, because I know that that is a lot of the same. Okay. Adding that red in so we get a little variation in the wings. So now what I'm going to do is I want to work on the wing that is the driest, and I'm going to, so I have my resist laid down so I can paint right over that. And then I'm going to really delicately go around or paint in these veins. So my brush, even though it's a size 10 round, it comes to a very fine point. So I'm going to use this one for the insides of those little veins in the wings. If your brush does not come to a point, I would recommend getting a different brush or finding one that does, just so you can keep it a little smaller, really get those fine details. So I am going to use my black, is that Payne's Gray or Ivory Black? And let's see. So I can just pull straight from the well. There's not really a reason why I would have to make a puddle with this because it's all one color, it's pure, and if I take it straight from the well, it's gonna remain a little bit, just a little bit darker. So the only thing you have to be concerned with is not putting your hand in the area you just painted. So it's up to you if you want to start with the outside of the wing. One thing that's really nice is some of these serrated edges along the outside of the wing. Actually, I just noticed there's a little white, like half white dots along the top wing too. I don't know why I saw those on the bottom wings, but I missed them on the top. So at this point in the demo, I'm not gonna stop. But if you haven't started yet, that's kind of a fun little serrated texture. Okay, so I'm gonna just do the veins first, and I'm hardly applying any pressure to my brush so that I can get a really thin line, and my line might actually be a little too thin because I can see some white through it. So let's see. And I do plan on adding a little bit more red around the edges as well, some of that alizarin crimson. So this butterfly is optional. If you want to paint it and then add it with the rest of your bugs on the discussion board, I would love to see it, but if not, I know we already did quite a bit in class, so that's fine. So it's really just a matter of slowing down and taking your time. All of these will be hard edges because we waited until the wing, that first layer of the oranges was dry. And as I said, you can see a little bit of that white on either side of the black line, but I'm gonna add a little bit of my alizarin crimson, and that'll fill that white in. Okay. And if your line is getting a little splotchy, like it's not moving across the page enough, you might need a tiny bit more water, but yeah, just do a tiny bit at a time. You don't have to dunk the whole brush. Maybe just dunk the tip of the brush in the water, or at least start with that and then feel it out. You can always add more water. It's easier to add more water than more paint. And this top portion of the butterfly is a little bit thicker, so I'm having to go over it multiple times. And these little red dots, I did not resist out, so I'm painting around them, but the little white dots I did use resist over, so I can just paint right over those. So the top line, this top arc is very smooth, but then the bottom of the wing is a little more serrated, or a little more like jagged, I guess you could say. So just kind of wiggling my brush back and forth will give me some of that fun texture. And then just going over the lines. And if I start to add a little too much water, my black will become gray. So you can either just go over it with another layer of black, or just pick up a little bit more paint from your well. I feel like these are going to be so cute when they turn out. I love insects and butterflies and ladybugs and beetles. I feel like sometimes they get a bad rep, but they are so pretty. Like the colors are so pretty. Okay. So it looks, I don't know if this is my printer. It looks a little bit lighter black in some areas. So you can always do that by just adding a little bit more water. But like I said, I don't know if that shows my printer, so it very well could be. Oh, I might have added a little too much water. So if I added too much water to my well, I'm just gonna blot my brush on my paper towel and that'll absorb quite a bit of that water. Okay. And then we start over. This is a little bit, it's maybe a little bit more on the tedious side. However, I feel like it's a good exercise to get control of your brush and the small details, and how much water to use, but it's also somewhat forgiving. Okay, so for this side, I did add some of that resist at the edge of the wing, because I was actually paying attention to what I was doing. I'm working on becoming more observant. You would think, being an artist, that I would be a more observant person, but I feel like my thoughts are always going, so sometimes I miss details. Okay. You can see that there's clearly not a rhyme or reason why I'm painting the the veins or the outside first. Kind of just going back and forth as I please. It doesn't really matter. So, whoopsies. That got a little thick. If your paint is too light, again, use less water, blot on the paper towel, and use more paint from the well. That was a little thick. Bummer. And if your lines are a little bit jagged, or you can, like this one is maybe a tiny bit jagged on the edges, then that just means I need a tiny bit more water actually to form that more solid line. So there's a happy medium. And just using the tip of my brush to get these thin lines. Okay. And in some areas, like right in here, it got a little bit too light, so I'm having to go over it. Oh no! This line keeps getting bigger and bigger. Okay, and then I'm gonna bring this black line down. Okay. And you can see that some of this black dried a little bit lighter. So it's like a dark gray. So up to you if you want to go, if that happens to you, if you want to just apply another layer of that black, it will definitely darken it. But if you like the lighter, you don't have to. I might darken it just a little bit right down here. But I like a little bit of that variation. Oh my gosh. Note to self, don't listen to the voice before filming. Just get songs stuck in my head so easily. This butterfly does require a lot of patience. But I think she'll be worth it in the end. Right, one more to go. And sometimes, depending on how you hold your brush, the line might be a little thicker or thinner. I just want to try to make them somewhat similar on both sides. So if the lines on this side are a little thicker than this one, maybe I thicken these ones up, just so they're the same. Going around my little red spots and over my little white spots. Okay. And then the little squiggle on the bottom, maybe needing a little bit more paint, just to give it that jagged edge. The end is in sight. Oh no. All right. Okay. And then the body is also black. And I put some little resist dots on the body too, where some of those little white dots are toward the head. Okay, so we're close. Now I want this antenna to be super delicate and super light. So I'm hardly gonna use any pressure to get me the thinnest line. There's like one hair of my brush touching the page. Trying to like hold my breath while I do it. Yay, okay, that stayed pretty thin. And this little leggy here is a little bit thicker, but not much. Not by much. Okay. And I guess he's only one leg showing. Maybe we'll just do that so he doesn't look so awkward. And let's see, I'm gonna make this just a little darker. That one got a little bit light. And maybe just adding like a divider between the top wing and the bottom wing. Making this a tidbit darker. I just want it to be symmetrical. So if the other side is darker, then I'm gonna darken both sides, or darken the other side. You know what I mean. And maybe making this line a little bit thicker because it's a little thick on the other side. Okay, so you can stop here if you want, or you can add a little bit of alizarin crimson along the edges of the black. So I will demonstrate that really quickly. Okay, so I want my paint to be dry. I don't have a lot of water on my brush. So this is more of like a cream consistency, not a milk consistency. It's a little thicker than that. I don't have much water on my brush. If you're not sure, dab it on the paper towel. It's better to have not enough because you can always add more. And then I'm just gonna go just around the edge. So my brush is partially going over the black and partially going over the orange. And if you think this is too dark, you can also add a little bit of Scarlet Lake in with your alizarin crimson to lighten it up a little bit. So I'm just outlining the inside of these black wings. I feel like it just makes it a little bit softer. It is picking up a little bit of the black, which is making it a tiny bit darker, but so if you wanted to, if you want to make sure that it doesn't pick up any of the black, you could just wait till it's a little bit drier. I'm adding this almost right away, so that's also why it's picking some of that up. But I feel like it just gives it a little bit more of like a depth. Let's see. I think I like the red around the edges. I think it adds a little bit. I'm gonna just add a little bit of Scarlet Lake inside of this one too. These are a little darker. And you can see, you can't see any of those white gaps between the black and the orange anymore since I added this red. If you feel like it makes your black like too inconsistent, or like your black gets a little darker where that red overlaps it, you can always go back and add more black. Just do another layer over that black to unify it a little bit more. But I mean, I don't think it's that noticeable. So, and then just doing the same on the bottom. So I would just continue this the whole way. And then rub off my resist once everything's totally dry. I want to make sure that black is very, very dry before rubbing off that resist so I don't smear it at all. And then you have your butterfly. You can see too, it just sort of unifies, make some of these edges not look quite so jagged, to have that transition of the darker red between the black and the orange. So I think it's kind of nice, but up to you. And I am cleaning my brush occasionally because I am picking up some of that black still. Like I said, it wouldn't happen as much if I waited till it dried. But I just wanted to do this demo all in one sitting. So we are not leaving drying time. Okay. Okay. Last one. Oh, I think there's a little too much water in that mixture, so I'm just going to grab it from my well because that was pretty light. Oh, that line was a little thick. Let's see if I can. I think it's staying thick because I don't want to change the color too much of the whole thing. It's okay. You can also, instead, if you want to add more red over some of the black, you can do that too, just to warm the black up a little bit. Totally optional. And the last one. Okay. I'm not gonna warm mine up. I think it looks fine. And maybe you like the contrast of the cooler black to the warmer red. All right, so the last thing I would do is I would just rub off my resist. And let's see, is it a little bit? Yeah, like so. And you can see all the little green marks will become white marks. So let's see. I just want to make sure I do it in areas where it's totally dry. And make sure your hands are clean. Look how fun that is. And really pretty simple if you take the time to really go slowly and observe. I think honestly, probably drawing out the butterfly is one of the hardest parts, but you can always trace that part too. This is a watercolor class, not a drawing class, so I will allow it. Okay, just try not to go over any of the red with my hand because I don't want to lift up or smudge any of that paint if it's still wet. But I just want to see the whole effect once this is dry, and it's looking pretty fun. Much crisper and cleaner with the resist gone. I think I might have resisted a little too much in the butterfly's head and body, but could always come back with more black paint. So that's the beauty of it. Okay, that is all. Enjoy your day.